Greetings, YouTube. It has been a minute. I'm back, nevertheless, and here today to review. Not review. Basically, this series is just going to be me going over albums that I think are pretty sick. And for this first episode, I thought we'd cover one of my favorites, which is Moving Away by Gleemer. Now, this band, to put simply, I think you could categorize it under alternative rock. And the band consists of 3 members, I believe. I think they had 4, but judging by the recent pictures, one just kind of dipped. So 3 members, I believe, started by Corey Kaufman, and this is their second album. Because Hollyland USA, which is their first, is only on Bandcamp. So first Spotify album, I guess, but really second album that came right after their No Goodbyes EP. And at this point, it's probably like 6 years since this album dropped, so it's been a minute. Basically, how I found this band last summer, I let Spotify Shuffle just kind of do its thing, and I came across Gauze, which was a really cool song, because I had this, I don't know, this sounds so hippie to say, it had this vibe to it, but it really, like, was a different sound from what I have heard from, like, previous alternative rock acts. So I decided to dive deeper into the band, and this album, Moving Away, I believe is the first album I ever checked out from this band, and I consider myself a big fan to this day. To describe this band's sound, it's kind of hard because it's definitely like alternative rock, but it's like emo, shoegaze, indie, with of course, alternative rock. Like the chords a lot of the time are very distorted and grungy, but the melodies are very like shoegazy. So it's hard to describe, but it's a very beautiful sound. And this album sound, now, a big critique some people may make for this album is that it sounds too similar, like each song sounds the same. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard this album, I didn't think that exactly, but I was like, okay, the sound palette definitely never changes. But after listening to it multiple times, I think it's very fitting, especially for the moving theme throughout. It's not like every song is, drastically different. I think it's all under kind of the same topic of this past lover or past person you once had. And, that longing for kind of what you once had. It's kind of like, I don't know, man, Gleemer, like, as far as putting heartache into music form, I think Gleemer do it the best out of all the bands I've heard. I actually really love that the sound palette is very consistent throughout this album, because it shows, that this is, the theme of this album, it's this heartachy feeling, and it's not something that just goes away, it's kind of like how I describe that very lingering feeling. Some people, after a relationship, they're just like, they can move on after a month. Some people, it takes a lot longer, and you're left with that hard, lingering period from the past, and that to me is this album. Now, found this band from Gauze on Spotify, and that's pretty much the song that got me into this band. Now, Gauze is it's a beautiful tune. Like, it's the perfect opener for this album that just sets up this scene of like what the album, the topic of the album is going to be, as well as the sound palette, and does a really good job. Catchy ass guitar. Like, I could say many great things about this song. I mean, just the ending of it, where you just get this collage of instrument, like just fucking crash cymbals, guitars, and like the vocal. Like, another thing or critique, I guess you could say, for this album is that the vocals can be very muddy, when it's clashed with all these instruments, all these crash cymbals. But to me, that's what makes this shit so fucking good. Like, that shit, like, I can't describe why it works, but it just does. And if you listen to it, you'll know what I mean. And it just nails the emotion it tries to capture. I mean, I could say that for a lot of these songs, because this album was definitely a grower. I heard Gauze, and I listened to the full album front to back, and I kind of slowly got into each song individually. After I heard the whole album, I was like, alright, that was a vibe, that was an experience. But I guess I didn't really get it until later. So after I heard Gauze, I ended up really digging the track Fallout. Now, Fallout is a song you wouldn't expect to work, but does. And again, a lot of this album is something that I think has to grow on you. Like, Fallout took me a few listens too. Basically, it starts with this very one-noted guitar, but that one-notedness really works. And I can't describe why, again, but it's kind of like this feeling where, I guess, numbness, you could put it, where you're kind of just, and just this monotone vibe. Like, I legit can't describe why it works so well. but this one-noted guitar that carries out through the entire song. And you know, the entire song is not one-noted, of course, but it starts off with that guitar, a nice mellow synth. Now Fallout is actually kind of very similar to Gauze in a few ways, but they're both very unique tracks. They both have kind of the same tempo. They start with that, you know, nice little, you know, that very mellow sounding pad. I don't know what that was. Yeah, it's just a beautiful track that only grows on you. It's not a song that is very like, you know, like there are some songs on this album that do have like a faster tempo where the energy does pick up a little bit, like Heater and Trade Up are two that come across my mind. You could also say Dragging. And the lyrics on Fallout, it just ties the whole thing together. And I think this album lyrically, you could also say, you know, doesn't change too much. You know, they're not like the fucking Shakespeare of music, but it really works. Like, I don't think they have to go from this top tip, because this, I don't know if I would call this album like a concept record, but it definitely has like a running theme throughout. And the lyrics not going into all these different crazy territories isn't really a big deal in the end, because I think, you know, it's sticking to this theme. Like, it's literally like the album's theme running through. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you get what I mean. But second track on this album is Heater. And again, it's a very much an energy pickup in the album. It's funny because it comes right after Gauze, which is very, you know, slow moving track. And it transitions into this more like fast paced energy, but does it very seamlessly. Like each transition, like each song into the next song on this album is done super smoothly. Like Champ into Trade Up is very like, that transition is really good. Basically, these songs just line up next to each other really well. But I think once I got into Gauze and Fallout, I was willing to give this album some more listens, because I feel like it's an album that I knew I had to listen to it multiple times to really get it. And by like the third listen, I fucking got it. And I think the more you listen, the more you'll feel what this album is talking about. I think I saw this in like an article that covered this album, and it said like, you know, how it comes off as just like, you know, three emo ass dudes being mad at their parents or some shit. But I think within a few listens, you'll find that this album is a lot deeper than just this emo, you know, snooze fest. And this isn't even a record that really wallows a lot, even if it does show a lot of emotion, you know? Because if it was a record that wallowed in all this shit, we wouldn't have tracks like, you know, Trade Up. There is another track I have to shout out, and that is Champ. One that took probably the longest to grow on me. But I don't know why I didn't like this track, like, on first or second listen. Not that I didn't like it, but it didn't hit me as hard. The track starts off with these like very light breezy guitars, and eventually goes into these medium paced drums with some little stick hits. And but when the chorus hits, goddamn, like the chords and the vocal melody in that song, and like the way, I can't describe, but I don't know why I can't think of the term right now. But you know that part that's like after the chorus, like the second part of the chorus, that on Champ, that shit is so good. Like, the way they get, like, another thing I have to compliment this album on is the musicianship. Because, like, holy shit. Like, the guitars and, like, the very soft vocals that carry throughout. You know, it's funny, because, like, the guitars are very much, you know, throughout, you know, the loudest points on this album are very, you know, distorted and harsh, while the vocals, you know, sit back. But it works so well in creating this nature of like where you get what the album is trying to say, and I can't describe it. I'm probably butchering it because it's very hard to describe, you know. It's like, you know, maybe it's like, you know, on the surface, you know, you're very relaxed, you know, about everything that's happening, but on the inside, that's like the loud ass guitars, that's all that wailing shit, you know, on the inside. I tried to describe it. And right after that, we have Trade Up, which, like I said, it's a more fast tempo track. And again, I think I'm gonna say this for like each song, that, oh, this song grew on me, that song grew on me, but it really did. And it kind of like happened all at once. And I think it's something you have to have like some sort of, I think it's because like each listen, you really like catch up on the more small things that really make it good, and it makes you just want to keep replaying it. You know, even lyrically, you know, I didn't dive into the album too much lyrically at first, because, you know, with the soft vocals, it can be hard to, you know, understand at times. But, you know, when you do look into them, it works so well with instrumentation. And if the lyrics don't convey much, like the instrumentation will, trust me. Like, you know, it's one of those things where you may not get a song, but because the instrumentation like just displays that emotion so well, like you get it. And this is the one band I know that kind of has really nailed that. There are other bands in the similar genre that I've tried to get into, you know, that display that similar emotion, and like, you know, they can do it, but Gleemer, man, they hit the sweet spot. And Dragging is another one. I'm just gonna like shout out each song on this album because it's really good. But Dragging is another one that just starts off with this really, really catchy guitar, and at the end, like, ooh, the ending of Dragging is so good because like the main guitar that carries throughout gets hella distorted, and like these crash cymbals, and you know, I'm just a sucker for you know, those big crescendo moments in music. But man, that shit hits. It hits, and they always do it at the right times. You know, it's not like just going into boom, 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 like giant crescendo just for the hell of it. Like, you know, there's always a build up, and the payoff is always worth it. You know, in Gauze, Dragging, Champ with the chorus, like it all, like, you know, it never feels like they're being loud for the hell of it. It feels like when they are being loud, you know, with the instruments, it's very you know, necessary. I will have to say my least favorite song of the album is actually Long Hair, which is the final track. Like, it's not a bad song by any means, and I think it works as a closer, especially, my favorite part of the song is probably the ending though. There's even some female backing vocals that kick in throughout like the very tail end of it, which is really subtle. I actually didn't notice it until like my my 7th album listen, but I guess this song just doesn't make me feel as much. Maybe it feels like a little bit lazier. But that's not a big deal at all because I think the song finishes strong, and who knows, maybe it's something that'll grow on me more in the future. And one more I want to talk about is Cool Back, which is a song I think deserves a lot of appreciation because there's the one point in the album where it gets this kind of like acoustic break a little bit, but the way it's done is very, very nice because, like, you know, you could just have this acoustic ass song of the album just to have it, but like this song adds more than an acoustic, like has these very light pads that come in, this light floating pad melody along with the breezy guitars, and like it feels like a needed point, you know, right after Lily, which is another beautiful track. When this track does work in like these mellow pads, it's always used tastefully, you know. Like in Cool Back, there's this very nice like floating like pad melody worked in there. It just works so well with the guitars and just the atmosphere of everything. It's beautiful. And like I said, that track comes right after Lily, which is, it's explosive. It's a beautiful song. Now, Lily is a track that's definitely more, I guess, on the energy spectrum of this album. It's more high energy, but it's like this sad high energy, which I think a lot of this album, when it is very energetic, is a very, you know, melancholic, sad energy to it still, which I respect a lot. It keeps like the same mood or vibe throughout. You know, I don't think this is an album that really needs to be going across the spectrum to all these different things. I think the fact that it stays within the same realm works very well for this album and to its benefit. And you know, again, a lot of the lyrics do cover like a similar theme of like, you know, what you once had, you know, these memories, this feeling. But the reason this album conveys it so well is because this is what that feeling is actually like to me, is this album. And I can't find another album that really displays that feeling better. Because, you know, like I said, when you're going through this feeling, this emotion, it isn't something that just kind of like, you know, that just goes away. You know, I love the fact that this whole album, you know, kind of encapsulates this feeling because it is something that lingers on. And, you know, with this emotion, I mean, this album exists and, you know, I can't speak. But basically, it feels like what they did is they took this fucking emotion and they made like a badass album out of it. Like, I can't think of an album that does it better, really. But yeah, if you guys have heard this album, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you haven't, I highly recommend you check it out. Again, it's something that may take time to grow on you, or it may not be your style, but I really do recommend checking it out. I'll link all of Gleemer's stuff down below, as well as this album. And if you'd like me to review another Gleemer album, or another album in general that I like, or if you want me to talk about music more, let me know. All my socials and stuff are down below. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, whenever that will be. I'm probably just gonna make videos whenever I feel like it. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.